Good morning. Welcome back into Wake Up America. Let's go to the war in Ukraine as the president's foreign policy continues to be put to the test. Arms negotiations between Russia and North Korea continue. Secretary of State Antony Blinken surprising everyone visiting Kyiv yesterday and announcing another $1 billion aid package as President Biden heads to India today for the G20 summit. Joining us now for a reaction is Chairman of the U.S. edition of Spectator magazine, Andrew Neil, and retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General Blaine Holt. It is a pleasure to have you both on. General, you know, a lot of people would have liked that $1 billion to go to the people of Maui. We still don't have an accurate death toll. That fire breaking out almost 3 weeks ago now. A real tragedy, yet the 45th aid package instead in the form of $1 billion for Ukraine. Your reaction to that?
Yeah, I'm sickened by it as an American, and I'll tell you why. You've got $700 one-time payment to the Lahaina victims. We don't even know where the 2,000 kids are yet. And so that's where that ends. Meanwhile, you have the FEMA folks, their first hotel rooms over there at $1,000 a night. The average, so if we look at the Ukrainian population, what's been authorized comes out to about $3,700 a Ukrainian for this entire thing, with more to come. So it's America, this isn't lost on Americans at all.
You make a great point. FEMA, they're staying at the Four Seasons in the Grand Wailea, two of the most luxurious hotels in Maui. Andrew, nice to have you on this morning. Take a listen to what Antony Blinken had to say about U.S. support for Ukraine yesterday.
That includes $665.5 million in new military and civilian security assistance. The assistance includes an additional $175 million in drawdown authority that will provide significant support for Ukraine's air defenses, another $100 million in foreign military financing to support Ukraine's longer-term military needs, $300 million to support law enforcement efforts to restore and maintain law and order in liberated areas. We're sending our first delivery of mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, and we're providing critical assistance for demining.
Okay, so I get it. This is all very feel-good, the parade of foreign visitors, Chris Christie included, to visiting Zelensky in Kyiv. Does this do anything to sway Vladimir Putin, Andrew?
No, it doesn't, but it sends a signal to the Kremlin that the West is staying united. I mean, I don't accept this trade-off between we can't afford to help Hawaii because we're sending money to Ukraine. The United States is a big, rich country. It can afford to do more. The reason why Hawaii is not being helped is because of the inefficiency of the federal government in responding to that terrible tragedy, not because it's sending money or arms to Ukraine as well. It can do both, and both need to be done. Hawaii needs to be rebuilt, or that island does, and America needs to stand with its European allies against the most dangerous land incursion since the end of the Second World War. And if we don't stand up in Ukraine, what's next? The Baltic states, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland? You know, America's not doing this alone. The Europeans are putting in a ton of money as well. In some cases, a higher percentage of GDP than America is putting in. And Poland is rearming fast. Poland has taken in over 3 million Ukrainian refugees. Britain's taken them in too. We're sending sophisticated weapons. Denmark and Holland are about to send F-16s. This is called NATO. We're an alliance of democracies, and we're standing up for democracy. We can afford to do it.
Sure, sounds great. So where is the strategy in all of that? And we're such a rich country. Why would then we sit here with absolutely no transparency on how the dollars are being spent, because there's no outcome at all? The other part is, to your point, we're watching Europe pay the heavy price on energy stocks with deindustrialization. So as a former NATO leader and officer, I would say, are we really making Europe more secure, or are we imperiling it?
Well, Europe has helped to make itself less secure by Germany becoming so dependent on Kremlin gas. And Angela Merkel, the former chancellor, was warned not to do that, warned many times, including by Donald Trump, of all people, not to do that. That's a self-inflicted problem.
European imports of Russian gas are up 40% on the natural gas side just over the last year alone. So the sanctions are not even being held. Again, back to where's the strategy? How does, and I like what you said, because what's going to be next if we don't have a strategy? Right now, we're looking at Armenia and Azerbaijan about to go for it again, and this could be a repeat of what we just saw in Ukraine.
But there is a strategy, and it's quite clear what Ukraine has to do. It has to punch through on the Eastern Front.
Without air power. Without air power.
Well, without air power, because America's been so slow to agree to the F-16s.
Right, we did it. Of course we did.
You know, so if they had these F-16s now, it would be more quick. But it's going to happen. There is progress being made in the Ukrainian battlefront.
Andrew, let me jump in.
I was asked what the strategy is. The strategy is.
Let me jump in, Andrew. Let me jump in. Let me just jump in for a second. Do you see this war ending in any way? And I don't care. You call it an armistice, a frozen conflict, maybe an indefinite ceasefire. Do you see the war ending without Russia holding on to some territory in Ukraine? They control roughly 25% of the eastern part of the country right now, a significant percentage. Ukraine's losing the war. They are losing the war right now. Do you see the war ending without Ukrainian territory in Russian hands?
Ukraine is losing the war?
They are.
No idea what you're talking about. Of course it's not losing the war.
Are they
Really?
winning
So
the
they've
war
committed
right
their
now?
last reserves. They've committed their last reserves. They're going around Robottino because they can't take it. They're on foot. And how are you going to logistically resupply that? How are you going to keep that army sustained if they can't get the shipments that they've been asking for the longest time? I'm with the Ukrainian generals on this one who are sitting there saying, where are my bacon, beans, and bullets?
Their
to
hands are
sustain this
tied. And I
counteroffensive?
want to add, General, our hearts break for the people of Ukraine. All right,
They
these are two
do.
separate
Absolutely,
issues.
they do. That's why I
the
try to help them
GDP
every
argument
way.
is the GDP argument is fine. The U.S. has given more than $100 billion, and the coffers remain wide open. The point I think that I was getting at, Andrew, and I'm going to give you a quick moment to reply, is that when Russia invaded Afghanistan in the 80s, they stayed there for 11 years. We can't afford to do that in Ukraine. So when does this war end? How does it end?
You haven't invaded Ukraine. You've but
we're financing Ukraine's ability to fight back.
The NATO alliance has managed to inflict massive
Ukraine's not a
damage
NATO
on Russia.
country.
Well, are you going to let me answer or just heckle me?
Go ahead. I'm not heckling you.
Yeah, good. Right.
Go ahead.
The NATO alliance has managed to inflict massive damage on Russian military power without losing a single NATO soldier. We haven't invaded Ukraine. We're not deploying soldiers in Ukraine. The Ukrainians are doing the fighting. And as a nascent democracy, it's the duty of other democracies to continue to help Ukraine to do it. After all, if we'd done that in the 1930s with countries in a similar position, we wouldn't have ended up with the Second World War.
We are spending some back.
We'll leave it there, but I will have you back. General Holt, Andrew Neil, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Appreciate the conversation.